Welcome to the Matchbook Betting Podcast for our final Rugby World Cup betting preview. Sad times to see the end of what's been a pretty dismal tournament, let's be honest, from a betting angle. But, there's been some exciting games and we've got an absolute cracker coming up in the final. England against South Africa, pure power against pure power. Speaking of which, we have joining us today Mark O'Haire from We Love Betting. Good morning, Mark.
Very good intro there, Alan. Enjoyed that.
And the big man himself, Aidan Sully O'Sullivan, to power through the betting options for us today. How you doing, big man?
Yeah, I've lost a bit of my agility and power in recent years, Al, but I will take the compliment when it has come.
Well,
Gladly. Thank you.
I've seen you drinking, so I mean, it can definitely.
It's probably the only thing I'm poor for that nowadays. Yeah.
How are we feeling about last weekend, gents? I mean, things didn't quite go to plan, did they? As described by some of our viewers, the anti-English podcast. We'll get to that later. How are you feeling about how the betting went last weekend and how the rugby went, indeed?
Yeah, I might just take up for Mark there. Anti-English podcast. I tipped them up against Argentina. I more or less tipped them up against Australia, so I don't know how we're anti-English. We did like the All Blacks last weekend, but obviously tremendous, outstanding. Probably will never see a performance from this English team like that again. That's not a segue into this weekend that they will perform less, but if they reach, I think even if they reach 80% of that, they'll probably win and cover. But yeah, look, that's just where we're at. Personally, my outright position in South Africa at the start of the tournament, that I am where I am with it. It's more or less I got it at 5.5 at the time. Can't really do much with it hedging wise. I think there's a lot of people in this situation right now, and obviously on the other side, England very similar price. These teams are essentially rated right on par going into this tournament. England now a 5.5 point favourite. I see a lot of 6 there with the sports books. There could be 6.5 if you want to buy down for a bit of 1.8. We'll get into that in a while. But yeah, that's where we're at. I have my South Africa outright. I think I have a couple of other fancies here as well at bigger prices. But yeah, that's where we're at. Baka all the way. Anti-English podcast. There we go.
Mark, I mean, how are you feeling those games played out? It's an absolutely extraordinary performance from England, wasn't it? I mean, defensively, I don't think I've ever seen a better defensive performance in international rugby. It was absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah. I mean, I probably did England a bit of a disservice last week on the podcast because I completely forgot about Owen Farrell when I was listening back about sort of talking about the England players who could make it into the All Blacks team. But based on last Saturday's performance, you'd have the England 1 to 15 on that showing because they're absolutely exceptional in every facet of the game. The best performance I can think of since 2003 at least. We talked about everything they needed to do, and they did it better than anyone's ever done it really against the All Blacks. They were accurate, composed, disciplined, clinical, focused. They won 16 turnovers, kept New Zealand scoreless by that stupid giveaway try which they gave away. New Zealand only entered to 22. England's 22 3 times in the first hour. Defensively, just a masterclass really. Manu flying out of the line, just completely bamboozling New Zealand. Underhill, Curry, Itoje, just monstrous round the breakdown as well. I mean, we did talk about New Zealand before the match about the move to, the focus on the line out rather than the breakdown. And I was never going to kind of say New Zealand selected the wrong team before the match because clearly Steve Hansen's much more qualified than I. But in hindsight, it was the wrong call because they were outclassed at the line out as well as the set piece and the breakdown. I thought they'd react. They just didn't react to anything tactically, let alone physically. I thought they'd switch to Barrett to 10 and try and offer a bit more direction, but they just didn't have any answers. And I think that's the caveat, really. As good as England were, which they were absolutely outstanding, New Zealand were terrible, really, really poor. One of the worst New Zealand performances I've seen for a while. They had no answers for anything that was thrown at them. And I just think, I got a bit of grief on Twitter for my apparent England bias or, going against England. But, I did say they're actually outstanding. Even when I said after the game, England were superb. People are still biting back at me saying, you need to give us credit when we deserve to. I was like, well, I am. You're absolutely superb.
Yeah, and we lost money. What more do you want from us?
Exactly.
Painful. I mean, it's very easy. It's incredibly easy in betting to be wise after the event, isn't it? Nobody, not even the England team, not even their strongest advocates, was anticipating that performance, was expecting that performance. And as Mark rightly says, the corresponding performance in New Zealand, which was yeah, England got at them. Yeah, England forced them to make mistakes. But you had some dreadful kicking from hand from Bowden. Barrett, when he wasn't under pressure, you had some passes missed, lines overrun.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Sully, what do you think? I mean, how much of that was England making New Zealand look bad, and how much of that was just them just not showing up that day?
It's funny because when this was all going on, I was thinking back to our thoughts on New Zealand prior to the Irish game, when we were kind of alluding to maybe they're not that good, but then they put in that performance against the Irish. And look, in all honesty, I know recency bias. I mean, it's very hard, and especially in a cup competition. It's different with sports like the NFL, where you have 16 or 17 regular season games, and you can kind of maybe get a bit more detached from recency bias and play it as a good spot for different teams. But when it's knockout rugby, it's very hard to see a performance like that New Zealand one against Ireland, and now we're talking about this English performance against New Zealand, and obviously the market has reacted that way, and it's made England more or less 6-point favourite here, and rightly so, because we can only ever judge in the previous game, and again South Africa they plodded through against Wales, and the market has reacted accordingly. Negative on South Africa, a whole lot of positives on England. I mean, opening line was 3. That didn't last. I think it lasted maybe crazy. 12 hours. We knew even a matchbook that the money was going to come all one direction, and it has come that way. I mean, in all honesty, on any given day, this game on a neutral field should probably be a pick'em. If you look at all the ratings, just look at the 2019 ratings, it should probably be a pick'em. But it's too hard to look at that English performance and not get some bit excited, and in turn get a bit carried away, because it was that good, it was that clinical in all aspects of the game, that they deserved the market move, and they deserve respect. And prior to that performance though, if I think even if England had just stumbled across the line, the line probably would have held it maybe the 2-3 mark, but such was the convincing nature of it that bettors are enamored with this English team, and rightly so right now.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really talked about South Africa yet, and we'll come to them in a second. But I mean, let's.
Oh, hang on. There's two teams in this final, is there? Wow. Okay.
I mean, the market, as far as the market's saying, is about 1.5 teams at the minute. I mean, Mark, what's your sense on that line in particular? Before we kind of dig into a little bit more detail on some of the markets and some of the betting advice of it. I mean, -3 opener, as Sully said, was that maybe just sort of catch a bit of early action and with the intention of always moving it out? -6, does that feel like the right line for you at the minute for where it's settling, or will that go even bigger, do you think?
It might go bigger because recency bias is a big thing in these kind of tournaments, and I think people will have looked at the two teams' displays, contrasting displays, and think England, quite rightly, should be favourites and clear favourites to win this game. But I think we were messaging after that match, what price will England be? Will they be favourites? What's the line going to be? And I think it was pretty obvious they were going to be favourites, because they were pretty much rated at the same price in the outright market coming into the competition, knowing that England would have to play the All Blacks in the semi-finals if the draw played out as it was. So naturally, you expect them then to be 3-point favourites. I do think the line has creeped up a little bit too high for me. I might be completely wrong, trying to avoid recency bias as much as possible here, but I think these two teams are so well matched in so many different aspects of their play. I think England probably do have a little bit more extra in terms of not necessarily physicality, but maybe creativity and the ability to break the line. Different ways to win, perhaps. But Rassie Erasmus, we'll get into it when we're talking about the actual odds and the match itself. But Erasmus was quick to sort of say, we're going to stick to our blueprint here. We're going to follow the same pattern we did against Wales. They kicked the ball 39 times in that game, which is the most in a World Cup game since 2007 for the Springboks. It's pretty ugly. It's pretty attritional. But that's the way the South Africans do it. And I'm not sure if it's a bit of kidology from his side to say we're just going to do the same thing again, because clearly the rest of the world wasn't impressed with it. The market's not impressed with it, and the lines be moving out because of it. So I just wonder if he has got something, a trick or two up his sleeve to bring to this match. But I think in terms of the line, it's starting to creep a little bit too far for me. I'm sort of urging now on the side of the Springboks. I think as soon as it gets close to 7, that's the time for me to get on the Springboks.
That's a huge number, isn't it? I mean, so you were gasping to come in there, weren't you?
Well, just the point Mark was making there about kidology. See, I don't think that they will. I think they're very much set their style up for this World Cup. They're going to play to their absolute strengths. They're playing cup rugby. They're not going to change for anybody in this tournament. And we've seen it in the knockout stages, especially. They're sticking to their strengths. It's funny, you look back at last summer when they had this 3 tests down in South Africa, and these was Rassie's first games, and like South Africa played some amazing rugby, ran England off the field the first 2 days. I think the games were in Joburg and Bloemfontein, and then the 3rd test was down in Cape Town, and it was just a really bad weather day, and England prevailed. South Africa changed a lot of guys, didn't really play their first 15. I won't be reading that much into it, but I just know that South Africa can play this game. They can play this expansive game, but they're choosing not to. And I was just looking at some of the stats there for the game against the semi-final games. They had 2 completed offloads, 2 completed against Japan as well. So that's 4 offloads in 2 games. So that's clearly just have absolutely no interest. So yeah. I don't think.
He's back.
Oh, sorry, did you lose me there?
You lost you for a couple of seconds there, mate. Maybe start again from you're looking at some stats. Talk us through them.
Yeah, so sorry, looking at some stats, 4 offloads in the semi-final and the quarter-final against Wales and South Africa, or against Japan combined. So they have no interest in expanding their game right now. But on the flip side of the coin is they probably are going to have to try something, because if there's any pack in this World Cup that will match up against South Africa, it is the English pack. They just won't be afraid of them. I mean, it's essentially the guts of the Saracens pack, who were never bullied in any game. And I've yet to see this English pack bullied in recent times.
That was my point, really, though, Sully. It's just I wonder if he is trying to, almost lull England into a false sense of security and say, no, we're just going to do the same thing because it's worked so far in the tournament. Whereas we do know, because we've seen the evidence in the past 12, 18 months, that they are capable of playing a little bit more expansive. They've got 2 wingers on that team who can cause problems to any defence. So, I'm just concerned if they do go into the game with the attitude of, let's just do what we did last week. Let's do what we did against Japan. Let's do what we did against the All Blacks in the first game and just try and grunt it up. That's where they're going to be found out, really, because they are a monstrous pack, but I don't think they're better than England at the breakdown. I think the line-out's going to be very evenly contested. I think the scrum's going to be very evenly contested. But I think the breakdowns where England will get supremacy, and that's my worry for South Africa.
I have just one point on that, Al, the breakdown. You see, if you want to play this expansive game, okay, you have to be exceptionally accurate at the breakdown with Underhill and Curry there at 6 and 7. So if you play that kind of game, you need fetchers on your own team. So you look at the South African back row right now. Khaleesi's a great player. He's not a fetcher. The guy on the bench, Francois Lowe, is a fetcher, but I don't know. Do you wait till later on in the game to bring him on and maybe play that kind of game then? But for the first half especially, I can't see to play that game. Peter Steph-Toy, who wears 7 on his back, but that's technically 6 in South Africa. The South African open side always wears number 6, which is Khaleesi. Khaleesi against Underhill, it's no contest. Underhill will win that 10 times out of 10. Khaleesi is pretty good in the loose, but there's a reason the guy is substituted after 50 or 55 minutes in each of these games, is that, he's just really not that good. He's not a bad player, but he's just not as good as what England have. Vermeulen will match up pretty well against Vunipola. That's probably the only edge I see in the back row for South Africa right now. And I just think, as much as they probably will have to play a more expansive game, I don't know how they can do it. And that's why, in my opinion, I think South Africa are going to play the exact type of way they played against Japan and Wales here. And they're just going to say, it's literally, look, you dance with the one you came with, or whatever that saying is, and that they're going to very much play that thing. And I think, just looking at these markets, I'm looking at unders in different areas, which we'll get to in a second. I'll
get to it now. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, how does that? That was going to be my question for you. How does that kind of shape of the game, do you think, what does that impact does that have on where the value might lie in the betting?
Yeah, look, we'll take a look at the kind of main markets currently. 36.5 is the total. Now, ordinarily, I'm looking at 36.5 in a dry weather game. I would literally always play it as an automatic and play the over here, especially with 2 goal kickers that are, going to be in the 90% range. They just won't be missing too many kicks outside of maybe the pressure angle. But I could actually make the argument right now that that's probably about 3 points too big. Defensively, both of these teams are off the charts. 2009, South Africa conceding an average of 1 try a game, just 1 in 2009. England small but more porous, but at 1.6 tries a game. So you look at that and you're trying to say, okay, where the try is going to come from, and it's hard to see them. And this just has all the makings of, a 2013 kind of game. Maybe one team gets to 20, but I just can't see both teams getting, even to 2017. I just don't see it. I don't see where the tries are going to come from. I don't see where the defensive weaknesses are. And tactically, we were joking about the box kicks in the Wales and South Africa game. Jesus, if we thought they were good, there was a lot there. There's going to be even more here. Because Ben Young's quite capable of sticking it up too, and you're just going to have the aerial battle with the wingers and who's going to win the breaking balls, and it's literally going to be. I think it's going to be that close. I do honestly believe that the English attacking game has evolved night and day from where they were this time last year, and if there are tries here, it's going to come from them. But in general, I think both defenses are exceptionally well coached by their defensive coaches as well, and just be lucky at unders. I'm hoping Mark agrees with me though. Hopefully.
Do you, Mark?
No, yeah, I do. I think it's very hard to see this game being a high-scoring one. Sully's obviously the man for the totals, but it's one I earmarked here. Only 2 of the last 6 World Cup finals have featured 40 points or more. Now, I know we were at 36.5 here, but as Sully says, defensive efforts from both teams. England conceded 4 tries and 43 points in their 5 games. Springboks 55 points and 4 tries in 6 games, and half of those tries came against the All Blacks in their first game. So it looks like a game for tight margins for me. If you look at the market, the way the handicap is playing, it seems to suggest England to win by 20-16, which feels probably about right. 21-15 if you're looking for the handicap to spread a little bit further. I've no qualms with England being favourites. I fully expected it to be so. But I look at this game. I think firstly it's actually refreshing that we've got 2 teams who are pretty much largely injury-free for the final, which is almost unheard of for a World Cup final. Fantastic for neutrals as well to see the best teams on show, the best players as well. Obviously, Colby coming back into the Springboks team is the only change from the 2 15s from the semi-finals. But all the mini trains are pointing England's way. No side's ever won the tournament having lost a pool stage game. No side's ever done the Rugby Championship World Cup double. And also we've got Jerome Garces in charge as well, which the Springboks are not impressed about because they lost 10 of 15 games with him in charge. England have lost 2 of 7 with him in charge since 2016. And actually, I looked favourites have won 12 of the 15 South African tests when Garces has been the referee. The exceptions were Japan 4 years ago at the World Cup, as well as 2-point defeats at Argentina and Wales as well. So that's when South Africa were going through a really poor patch as well. So they're not happy about him because his refereeing at the breakdown is pretty much a free-for-all. His offside lines have been pretty much just there hasn't been an offside line yet. So with 2 blitzed defences on show, if he's not refereeing those breakdowns or those offside lines, it's just going to be a free-for-all really. And that for me will just breed into a low-scoring game where 2 teams have just brute force and physicality are going up against each other. I find it hard to see this game featuring 2 tries or more. I'll be looking at the unders across a whole wide range of different markets, but in terms of the totals, yeah, absolutely, I'd be agreement with Sully there, but under 36.5 is the way to play.
Yeah, in terms of the way we expect this game to shape out, it seems like you guys are saying quite clearly it's going to be South Africa are going to stick to what they know. They're going to dare England to come out there, box kick them back into the corners, really test those wingers, and then it's going to become a bit of a power battle between the two. Just two sets of forwards smashing shit out of each other. Yeah. Ref not imposing offside lines. Tuilangi being about 45 yards past the breakdown when he smashes into some centre. I mean, is that basically how you see this playing out?
That's a really good summation, Alan. I think sometimes the way you're thinking, okay, is that too obvious? Are we kind of missing something here? But sometimes you have to look at the factors there and don't look at gift horse in the mold here. This is what is going to happen. I can look, we'll settle in tomorrow morning and watch this game. Do not expect a sevens kind of game. Do not expect this ball to be thrown around and, teams to be going absolutely nuts here, because they know against these defences that, South Africa quite happy. If England wanted to start running it from their 22, quite happy. They love that defence. They love getting that blitz up and, causing turnovers, maybe causing penalties and whatnot. Couple of angles I'm looking at here to kind of maybe, at bigger prices, if people don't want to get involved in the under 36.5, which is currently 1.95 a match book, you can look at different different angles here. Any result involving a draw is currently at 10.0 at Matchbook, halftime, full-time. So, it could very well be kind of a 6-all game at halftime. You get your bet up, you get paid by halftime. That's kind of happy. And you just never know if a game is decided on kicks. We had extra time in 2003, the last time England won a World Cup, and it's not inconceivable that we get that here as well. The other angle on that market I wanted to have a look at was England half-time, South Africa full-time. And people might say, well, look, South Africa can't play kind of catch-up rugby if they're staying to this game. The reason I like that one is maybe if England are ahead by 3 points or something at half-time, the South African bench, and especially in their front row and their forward pack in general, you can make a case that all those guys start, especially the front row. So this is one that's come up in different podcasts during the week as well. You look at Malcolm Mark, Stephen Kitsoff, Vincent Koch. That actually, in my opinion, is actually their first choice front row. So those guys are definitely coming off the bench one way or the other, 45, 50-minute mark, and they'll make a difference there. You bring Francois Lowe on, like I said, he's actually their prop, only opens really classic 7 for me. Franco Monster comes in there, and that big brute, RJ Sneeman, like I see, he's just like the kind of guy, if you look at him sideways, he'd eat you for dinner. And so, yeah, they're kind of ones I'm looking at. They're the bigger price ones. Interesting to hear Mark's thoughts. Maybe those drop goals are still in play as well, like, for scoring play.
Yeah, Mark, is there any bigger price bets you like to look off at this one?
Yeah, when we go into the outside shout, I'm sure I've got a couple there. But just going back to the game itself, because I think just want to clear up the thing on England. I'm not biased against England at all, but before the competition, I was opposing England because of the potential path they had to the final, which was setting up to be Argentina, France, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, which is absolutely monstrous. And I think that game off with France has been absolutely pivotal for them, really. Still, it's going to be mighty tough for them to do those 3 Southern Hemisphere teams week to week. But Warren Gatland was, I think, spot on. I know he's been criticised and laughed at by Eddie Jones for irking England with it's very difficult to back up an enormous performance week on week, but he's not wrong, really. And in a Rugby World Cup final, favourites do tend to get the job done, but they often flatter to deceive, and matches tend to be tight affairs. I know 4 years ago with Australia being in the final, it was a bit more open, but that's because the Wallabies like to throw the ball around a bit. But I still think there's something in that, really, that England have had a very tough schedule. South Africa have had different threats in terms of Japan and Wales in the knockouts, but they've not played the All Blacks for 5-6 weeks now. So their schedule's been a lot kinder. So you'd expect them to have slightly more in the tank. We don't know how much in the tank England have got left after last week, because it was a huge effort. So yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's basically like I do think the more the line is creeping up towards 7, the more South Africa become much more into focus for me. I do expect England to win. I'm not going to bring in the winning margin bet again, because we've heard that to death. So I won't. But I did do the stats anyway, just in case you were interested, because 5 of the last 7 finals have been settled by 10 points or fewer. Kind of goes straight into the argument we've been talking about being a tight match. And South Africa have won 3 of 8 head-to-head against England and New Zealand under Rassie. 7 of those 8 games were settled by 1-12. England have won 3 of the last 6 against South Africa or New Zealand, and 5 of those 6 were settled by 1-12 as well. 6 of the last 10 between the 2 teams settled by single figures as well, including a draw as well. So the precedent is there for a really tight agricultural game, you could say. I just think England are probably the better set up across the park to win a narrow game.
I can't believe he's jumping off this 1-12 bandwagon. It's probably it's literally probably the most obvious game that's going to be 1-12. It literally,
I can't do it again,
Mark, come on, stay on it. It's our last podcast for Rugby World Cup. Come on, stay on it. I mean, look, if you're even looking at Dutching options there, if you can't make a decision on either team, Dutch them up there 2.6 and 4.1. I mean, you're going to get you're going to get about 6-4 or something on that. So I mean, like, it's not a bad option either. I mean, look, can anyone see this game being a blow? Look,
last year, if you look back 12 months ago, they played at Twickenham. The game was decided by a point.
Yeah.
And a really controversial game where South Africa could easily have won if they'd got that decision late on. There's precedent here for being a tight, ugly game. I think we're all expecting it. I'd just be amazed if there's a blowout win by 7 points or more by either team.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll find decent sections of the English media and English fans are expecting it to be a blowout win, and the way the market's moving, there's some money's expecting a big performance.
Yeah, like Matt Dawson is probably backing England 13 plus as we speak. I would suggest.
I mean, if
alternative handicaps -20, -30, whatever he wants.
If you have like a ridiculously poor memory and you only watched games the week before, you'd have every reason to say that. If all you'd watch is that South Africa game and that England New Zealand game, you'd think, how are they even this close?
Yeah.
In the handicap, and that is fair enough. But these are two broadly settled teams with good coaches who know exactly how they want to play the game. Neither of them got particularly any massive injury concerns here. They've got the sides they want coming in, playing the way they want. They know how each other play. They will understand their strengths and weaknesses. And coming into the tournament with the same size, the same coaches, the same structures, the same patterns, the same ability levels, they were matched broadly, even England slightly ahead.
And it's a World Cup final.
Exactly.
There you go.
It's tough to see. So I mean,
they're all human at the end of the day. A World Cup final, you can be the most finely tuned team, which obviously, especially England are with their coaching setup and their backroom support and just their general resources. But they're still human. They still have, the William Webb Ellis Trophy over there on the side of the field. You tense up for those first 10, 20 minutes. You probably don't play like free, expansive rugby that you play any other day of the week. So that's another factor. So to me, and just given how these teams match up, like I said, we could be exceptionally wrong. It could be like a 30-20 game, but lads, come on.
Come on. Psychology-wise as well, I think both teams are in exactly the place they want to be in terms of England, confident, almost arrogant, after being the All Blacks. I hate to use the word arrogant, but it's a place and position they're comfortable with. And I think South Africa, we're looking at that and absolutely chomping at the bit to come into this game as underdogs and unexpected to do anything, being written off. I think both teams, in terms of where they are mentally, will be quite happy and quite comfortable in that position.
Yeah, I mean, one interesting aspect for me, I've been very surprised in the knockout games how kind of lightly the contact areas have been reffed. It's so pernickety in the pool stages. So many TMO callbacks, so many high tackles pinged. It seems like in the knockout stages, it's been me and the professor Brad Allen were discussing this the other day. It feels quite loose, the refereeing. It feels. I was kind of expecting there to be tons of yellow cards, even red cards, throughout the knockout stages, and you feel. Could that actually happen in this game where the pressure gets them, some mistakes get made? I mean, I was watching some highlight clips of those England big hits in that game, and frankly, two of them could have been given as penalties. That classic Underhill hit, which you've seen a million times by now, he lifts him up off the floor and he dumps him on his back. I mean, that's technically a penalty.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these things seems to be letting go at the minute. Do you think that maybe we may see a tighter refereeing performance in the final? Could we see some yellow and red cards? Or especially with these two rush defences, as you say, offside lines and breakdowns maybe not being enforced, it's just going to encourage more and more of those kind of massive hits, creeping further and further, taking players possibly without the ball, all this kind of stuff. Could we see cards? Am I hoping too much here, Sully? Then we can take two players off the field and maybe spread the ball about a bit?
It's a very hard one to know. I mean, look, the thing about it is, even the England performance against New Zealand, I think, just looking at my sheets or my notes, I think New Zealand had 14 clean line breaks. And, that just goes to show that the English scramble D is really good. And South Africa just weren't letting Wales get any line breaks either. So, I mean, generally, if you're looking for kind of cards in that kind of angle where, teams are just under massive pressure and other teams generally have to be playing in the 22. And this is kind of strikes me as a game that we played between the 10s, between the 10-meter lines and just outside of that. But, yeah, I mean, look, if you're looking at the card markets, it'd be one I generally stay away with. Garcés years ago used to be pretty good for, he was one of those referees even before these new edicts regards to high tackle would have given a red for, I think, or just remember back to a Heineken Cup game, Saracens and Ulster, where he red carded Jared Payne, which was like, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, and it was massively controversial at the time, but technically he was right. And he was one of those referees, he's not afraid to, brandish a card. But again, I think there's better angles here if you're looking for your general betting markets to kind of just be kind of clever and expect an attritional game, and you can find plenty of markets where you can exploit that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's in terms of the main market, the handicap market, the minus. Let's say it settles on -6, which is kind of where it is at the minute. I think it might creep up a little higher, -6.5, -7, even maybe in spots. But let's call it -6 for the sake of argument. Where's your money going, lads? Mark? Sorry, actually, you put your hand up there. You can come first. No, you come first, mate. Where's your money going on that one?
So I'm just kind of in a tough spot personally because I'm already on South Africa in the outright market, so I don't be getting too involved here. But if the game is playing out the way I expect it to, and the way we're kind of the general consensus is, like in any sport, if you're getting a start over a key number, which is obviously 5 in this circumstance with a try, and if you're getting 6.5 even, and you're getting up to 7, your next key number there is 6 with the 2 penalties, then you've got to take the start. If you're kind of the conviction that a game is going to go a certain way, you've got to be taking the start. I'm exceptionally nervous about my outright bet because England have been so impressive, and look, it would not surprise me at all if they win here and they cover. But I mean, if I'm going to follow my logic of what I'm trying to explain here today, then yeah, I'm going to be taking the plus. I'm happier with the under one, to be honest, though.
The anti-English podcast takes South Africa with the points. Mark, you're going to talk us out of this, right?
No, I'm South Africa all the way with the start for sure.
It's the last chance saloon to get out of this anti-English podcast. So there you go.
Keep sending those tweets through. I'm waiting for them because absolutely everything that Sully said here. I think 6.5 is too far for me. In everything we talked about, this game's going to be tight. It's going to be attritional. It's going to be low scoring. So why would you not want to have a converted try on your side, or 2 penalties? It's a big margin in a tight game. South Africa are no mugs. They're kind of being written off a little bit too easily so far. And I might maybe eat my words next week, and England might run out 15, 20 point winners. And fair play to them if they do. I'll doff my cap and say I was absolutely wrong here. But
doff your cap. You'll be hiding under your bed, Mark. You won't even be leaving the house next week.
You'll be emigrating.
Well, Mark will be doing the next week's football podcast from an undisclosed location. He won't actually recognise the back of it.
Johannesburg, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got. It does feel like that price has moved a bit too much. It does feel to me like it could move even further as well. So you might be worth waiting, I think, a bit to place those bets. If you're an early bird, maybe wait and see how the market's looking like really early in the morning.
I think with that total might tick up a small bit too, just looking at some of the money coming in Matchbook today, because you will get kind of a couple of the analytical guys who play numbers, and 2017 is it's not an unheard of score in rugby, so that's 37. So there's a lot of different numbers that they'll probably come in at. So you may just, I don't know if it'll flick off the 36.5, but you might just get a better price maybe over at evens at under 36.5, and it's just kind of trending that way at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a tough spot here because I put a chunk of money on England to win after they beat Australia, and it's
was that was the 9-2 bet, wasn't it?
Yeah, 9-2, and it's kind of I've been very tempted to trade it out because the England price does feel quite short.
I like your angle though. That was an emotional hedge.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. So don't let me try and pretend I know what I'm doing here. Everybody.
No.
But purely emotional hedge. Just get a ton of money on so I can get at least $1,000 out.
It wasn't that they were really good. It was just an emotional hedge.
It's never that I'm really good. Never that I'm really good. In terms of if we were looking for a bigger price, our mythical £10 bet. Talk us through how that £10 bet works, Sully, and then talk us through maybe where you would be sticking it on this match.
Yeah. Look, if you're signing up for Matchbook today, you do get a £10 risk-free bet for this game. So if you do place your bet on this game, you'll get a £10 risk-free bet. You have to be over 18. ACCAs don't apply to this one. Where I am looking, and offer.matchbook.com. That was my final bit of the plug there, sorry. So that is where to find out, offer.matchbook.com.
What was that address again, Sully?
Offer.matchbook.com. Really easy URLs. Just remember offer, and then you're away. One I'm looking at, and no surprise, I'm kind of staying on the general team of low scoring. No try scorer, 18.0 at Matchbook currently. Not bad. That would definitely be where my £10 risk-free bet is going.
Mark, where would yours go?
I've got the same noted down here, but I suspected Sully would be on that bus, so I did. I'm sort of repeating what I said last week, really. And if you did want something alternative, then just look for the first scoring play to be a drop goal for either team. I think it's around 25 to 1-ish. each to 2 there. So if you back them both, whack one with your money back in the risk-free side, and you're probably getting around a 12-1 shot. Then if either lands, Pollard on one side, who's not scared to keep the scoreboard ticking over. Ford attempted one against New Zealand. Farrell's there. Daly's there from distance too. If there's a penalty advantage and the teams are going nowhere on the halfway line, he's not scared to have a dig too. So, World Cup finals have got a history of drop goals. So 2 blitz defences, not a lot going forward from either team in terms of creativity and invention, especially in those early exchanges. Wouldn't be too surprised to see a drop goal floating over.
Yeah, I mean, I think because neither of you have done it, I would strongly recommend everyone at home to back both Bongi to be first try scorer and England 1-11 or 1-12, wherever you want to find it. Because if these lads aren't backing it, these have been their default bets. Just hit restart and they bet them again.
We can only give out so many sections there. We're backing this, so I'm definitely backing both of those. So I'm probably going to ending up having about another 6 bets, even though I have an outright bet. I like the drop goal Dutchy angle though. I'm looking at that. That's about 12-1. Like Mark says there, if you go either side of that. And again, cup final, there ain't no bonus points in this, getting the scoreboard ticking over. Johnny Wilkinson in with the English team during the week as well, so you can be sure he was showing these guys, definitely drop goal techniques. So be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a nervy first 5 minutes for you lads. I think if England come out of the blocks flying like they normally do.
If it's 14-0 or 7-all after 10 minutes, I'm definitely going under that coach that Marcus.
She was going out a window.
Putting the phone on flight mode. Do not look at Twitter. The abuse. Yeah. By the way, we love you guys getting in touch. By all means, get in touch. Give us shit if you want. There's no problem. we're big boys. We're well able for it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating game. I think it's one that the first 5 minutes, I was going to say 10 minutes will dictate the game. I think the first 5 minutes will tell you everything you need to know about how the game's going to play out. And I strongly suspect it will play out the way you lads have been suggesting. But, I mean, this World Cup has had its surprises. I mean, England beating New Zealand is certainly not the biggest one. I mean, in terms of outright bets, they're still looking okay, aren't they? For all the twists and turns, we're still not looking too bad. In our
two horse race now, anyway. So we're getting a 5.5 shot about essentially a 3.0 shot. So some of the value. Yeah.
And Mapimpi in the top try scorer market probably not going to get there now.
He needs a hat trick. Sorry, 2 for a dead heat, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 for Deddy. Josh Adams got 1 this morning, didn't he? So he took him to 7. He's on 5.
I struggle to see where 2 tries are coming in this game full stop. I don't think so. I don't see it.
I think that's probably dead, isn't it? But where there's hope, there's a way. Yeah. We could always get there, but
Bongi's not going to get it. So at least you have a runner on this. So, yeah.
How many does he need now? 4 or something?
4, I think. Yeah, let's play for dead heat. So yeah,
Mal off a quick 4 tries in the first half. I mean, that's the way we're expecting the game to go. Everyone, just forwards just smashing tries in left, right, and centre for the first 20 minutes. But I mean, in terms of the World Cup. How has it been for you as a betting heat, Sully? Are you licking your wounds, or are you feeling
I lick my wounds a bit. Even if South Africa win, I've made it last this World Cup. Put my hands up. Hasn't been great. Haven't really got a good read in it. Thank God for the NFL is all I can say.
It has been a tough one, Mark. You've made some great calls throughout the tournament. Not that Sully hasn't. Apologies, mate. But you made some good calls throughout the tournament. But luck's not always gone your way. I mean, how's it been for you in general?
No, very poor. No hiding place there. My worst World Cup in my memory, at least, from a betting perspective. So, it's been pretty painful, but got 1 game left, so all in.
Okay, and that's the responsible gambling.
Please responsible gamble responsibly at all times. We do not.
Massive hole. I've got 1 game to get out. I'm going to throw everything we can at
bankroll management, really important. We always stress bankroll management around these parts. Yeah, so responsible gambling at all times.
Betting is a long game. It's never.
We got 1 more opportunity to do best bets and I think that this is our,
There's the pro over there pulling me back from the wallowing.
I'm going to get you involved here now as well, Al. I'm going to get you involved there, right?
Jeez,
so you can go last. I'm going to go first. I'll take the lead in this one. Best bet for the Rugby World Cup final, under 36.5. Expected attritional close game. Mark?
Yeah, that was mine. But I'll go next best then. South Africa +6. 6.5.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to steal Mark's. I think England 1 to 11 or 1 to 12, depending on where the market lies, where you can find the value. That's got to be where it is. I can't see England not winning this. I can't see them winning by a huge total, because even if they get away, South Africa are not going to let them run away with it. It's too much pride in that side, too much strong fitness in that side. They'll be running till the end. It just feels like a Mark O'Haire special.
I love what you did there with the fitness, but anyway, do not say any more. We're probably already in trouble with the responsible gambling
I just got a finger quick. Yeah. I don't know what it is. But yeah, I mean, we've got to have one last Mark O'Haire special to see the tournament out.
I agree. I totally agree. 1 to 12.
If it wins and the Springboks 6.5 doesn't cover, then forget this.
Yeah.
Mark's going to riot. We'll never see him again. Well, anyway, thanks for that, lads. That's absolutely cracking preview. If you're not excited about it now, then really just give up and take up a different sport. I would say it's going to be a superb game. We won't be cheering against England. But I assure you, I hope you had a great tournament. I hope you had slightly better betting success than we've had. But,
we've had a lot of fun though, guys. These Friday mornings have been really good fun.
We've enjoyed it, and we hope you have too. Maybe see you back for the Six Nations. Thanks very much for joining us, and be lucky.